things that have been misunderstood is a lot of times people comment and say things like refugees are just here for a handout, right? They're here hoping to just receive support but not wanting to contribute. But I listen to stories like Kalima's, right? And I'm so moved by but just your heart, right, and your resilience. That despite going through so much, you've said multiple times throughout this podcast already that I want to help my community, and you don't need to, right? A lot of times people go through really difficult circumstances and find a way, to secure your future. But you've chosen to, yeah, I need to protect myself first, right? But you've chosen, to go through the necessary trainings and internship to see how you can better serve and support your community. And I think that is one of the most inspiring things, right? So a lot of times Malaysians talk about how, I think one of the biggest myths and misconceptions is that refugees are here in Malaysia and they receive government support and UNHCR support. But that's the furthest from the truth, right? The only support that they receive, if it can be considered a support, is a UNHCR protection card for those that are legally registered with UNHCR. But this card that you are granted barely covers protection in any way, shape, or form, right? So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, that refugees are here and they receive government handouts and UNHCR handouts, and they're here, but they just want to receive. On the flip side, we've seen people like Kalima, that you go out of your way to serve the community. And it can be difficult going to hospitals and negotiating with local doctors because, sometimes it's like even for NGOs, it's difficult, right? Going into hospitals and pleading doctors to that, like, hey, let me admit this asylum seeker that don't have a refugee card, right? So that can be really challenging. But throughout, the past 10 years of work and more, what we've really seen is how the refugee community really wants to give back. And we see, how, for example, the Somali community during the Putra Heights fire actually went out of their way to cook hot meals to bring it to the hall to distribute that, right? But even during the floods, so many during the refugee community, we were at a peak of just coming out of COVID, and recovering from COVID when the really terrible floods hit, if you remember that, right? But the first group of people that actually started reaching out was the refugee community to go like, hey, we're not impacted, but how can we lend support? We can't drive cars, but we can pack clothes, we can organize things at a hall. I remember going to kampongs and neighborhoods to do massive cleanups and spring cleaning with the refugee community. And that's what I find really, really inspiring. The heart, whenever we speak to the community, is, despite the hardship here in Malaysia, despite the fear, the lack of documentation, the struggle, when we talk to refugees, it's often like, hey, they often respond by saying like, hey, I really love Malaysia.